You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you'll be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman who is planning to move to Australia and a relocation agent who is helping her with the arrangements. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Hello, Australian Overseas Relocation Agency. This is Jason here.
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm calling from London. My husband has just got a new job in Australia, and his company recommended you to help us.
Great. Well, I'll get some details from you. Let's start with your name, shall we?
Oh, yes. It's Helen Green.
Thank you. And what's your current address?
It's a London address, 42 Station Road, Kew. It's just near the Botanical Gardens.
Oh, that sounds nice. And in case I need to contact you, could I have a telephone number?
Yes, it's 0207 9460 385.
Got it. Now, Helen, whereabouts in Australia are you relocating to?
Brisbane.
And is your husband's company paying for the move?
Yes, it's a company called Kirkby Technology.
I think we've worked with them before. And how soon do you need to move?
Well, they want my husband to start work in 2 weeks, at the start of the month. But school doesn't finish here until the end of July, so we can't possibly move until then.
Shall we say the beginning of August then?
That sounds more realistic. June is nearly over, and I have so much to do before we move.
Let's start with the accommodation you need. Would you prefer a house or an apartment?
Well, we live in a big house with a garden now, which we love. But I think that initially we'd be happy with an apartment that's fairly central, just until we get to know the city a little better and can find a house we love.
Sounds like a good idea. And what about location? There are some beautiful developments along the Brisbane River. It runs right through the city. The views are spectacular and you wouldn't need to worry about transport.
Well, actually, as we won't have our own garden, I'd prefer something close to a park. That's more important than a view for us.
OK, I'll make a note of that. Brisbane's a lovely green city, so that won't be hard. Is there anything else I can organise?
Oh, yes, furniture. We were planning to ship our own, but we've decided it isn't really worth it.
OK. Well, we can hire some for you for the first few months.
That would be great.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, Helen, what else would you like us to help you with?
Well, we have a son, a teenager, who will be coming with us, so we'll need to find a school for him.
Sure. What grade will he be in?
He's just turned 13, So he should be going into grade 9, but we've decided it would be better if he repeats grade 8.
Right, so you'll need a high school. Now, do you have any preferences regarding the school?
Well, he's at a state school at the moment, but the company is prepared to pay his school fees, so we would probably go for a private school if possible. It doesn't matter if it's mixed or single sex.
Sure, I'll make some inquiries and I'll send you a short list of possibilities.
That would be wonderful.
Oh, can you send me a copy of your son's report? The latest one if possible. The schools will want to know something about him as a student. You can fax or scan it to me.
Okay, fine.
Now, is there anything else I can help you with today?
Yes, there is one other thing. We'd like some information to help us settle into the community and make friends. My son isn't really into sport, but he's a keen chess player. He'd like to continue playing when we move to Brisbane. Could you find out about a club for him?
Certainly. I'll make inquiries for you.
And I play the flute, so I'd like to find a band that I could join if possible.
Music is very popular here, so that should be easy.
Thank you for all your help, Jason.
My pleasure. I'll be in touch soon.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You'll hear a city official talking to a group of people about a new development of shops and leisure facilities that have been built next to the sea. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Well, thank you all for coming along to this talk about our new waterfront development. The council has developed the old boat harbour to provide a new area of leisure facilities right here on the city's waterfront. And we want to encourage local people to visit the new development. OK, I'll start with some background. Long before the harbour was built, the first building on the site was put up by Sir Michael Grayson. He'd been working in Asia for a time, and when he came home, he began developing the city along this part of the coast. However, there was a problem with the site. Because the land was low-lying, whenever there was a storm, large waves would break on the shore, which could be destructive. So Grayson built a wall along the beach to protect the land behind it, and that solved the problem. Then, in 1915, the land here became more valuable. Some companies were not doing very well financially, so the government wanted to increase local business activity, and they did this by constructing a better road connecting this site to the city centre. That had an important impact, and later on, over the following years, it led to additional migration to this part of the country. One obvious change came in the 1920s when the first boat harbour was built here. The water was too shallow for large ocean liners carrying people, so these continued to use the main wharf further south. But the smaller boats that went out each day to catch snapper, tuna and other species to feed the city started to use this as their port. Defence Force ships, of course, already had their own base further up the coast. Then, in the 1930s, warehouses were built around the harbour and it was made deeper. That's because international trade was increasing. It's true that some parts of the economy, like sheep farming, were in decline, but forestry was a major growth sector. The timber was brought here by train, kept in the new buildings, then shipped to foreign countries. So, why did we need this latest redevelopment? Well, over the years the harbour had become run down. They talked about doing something for 10 years before anything actually happened. Finally, the project started when a team of designers began work and a consultation plan was drawn up. And now, 14 years after the project started, the new waterfront area is open to the public. We hope that nothing will need to be done now for another 25 years, when the harbour wall will need upgrading. I have to say, some parts of the redevelopment were quite difficult. We were lucky with the steamship because it had already been restored. What we really wanted was some traditional trams, so we bought some from another city. But it turned out to be a long process and they needed a lot of modification for our system, the hardest thing we had to do. We decided against renovating the old bridge and instead replaced it with a modern one, which was very simple in comparison.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Okay, so now I'll just tell you about a few of the features of the new development. So if you look at your maps, you'll see we're here, where it says South Gate, near the bottom of the map. So first, the playground. From South Gate, walk north until you come to the lifting bridge. Cross the bridge to the area we call North Wharf, and the playground is at the eastern end there, right beside the water. So, the open-air cinema. They show movies on a big outdoor screen. After dark, of course. It's a lot of fun. And it's up on North Wharf. Look in the northwest corner. It's a circular enclosure. You can't miss it. Now, we've also built a small aquarium that's full of local species of fish. It's close to Southgate. Find Pier 1, and it's right down at the end of that. Now, the Maritime Museum is well worth a visit. It's the only one of its sort in the country. From Southgate, you go... Well, actually, you can go two ways. Either go around the boat harbour or go over the lifting bridge. And it's the long, thin building that runs right along the north side of the boat harbour. OK, well, that's the end of my talk, but if you have any...
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2.
Part 3. You will hear two student nurses called Holly and Ed discussing their portfolios, which are the folders of work they have to put together for their nursing degrees. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Thanks for meeting me, Holly. I really appreciate it. Especially since you're a whole year ahead.
Hey, Ed, no worries. I remember how hard it was in the beginning. What was it you wanted to discuss?
Well, I'm concerned about the portfolio as I've never done one before.
Oh, it's fine as long as you update it regularly.
I'm not so worried about that. It's more that I might put in examples of my work that make me look bad.
I sympathise. I felt like that too. But it's simply a tool to show what you have learned in class and how you relate that to your nursing work. You don't have to write about everything.
OK then, but why do we need to do portfolios? My mum's a nurse and she didn't have to do one.
I read somewhere that putting together a portfolio is a bit like a photograph album because you don't select the embarrassing shots.
So we're supposed to display our work like an artist?
Not necessarily, though the analogy isn't far off. I believe architects use them when putting together bids for work.
Right.
But if you want some advice, I'm happy to tell you how I gathered information to put into my portfolio.
That would be great.
I learned early on that it was important for me to keep a diary.
Why? Was it so you didn't forget things?
Well, in fact, I was witnessing some of the most memorable events I'd ever seen, so that wasn't really an issue. Some people said it helped them learn from their errors, but for me, it was more that it gave me time to reflect on how I felt about events, what I had and hadn't learnt from them.
OK, I'll remember that.
Look, the best thing you can do about your portfolio at this stage is to speak to your mentor.
But I don't have one yet.
Really? Well, once you've got one, they're great.
OK, but until then I suppose I could speak to the other students in my year.
That's a good idea. They're probably feeling just like you, but since your mum's a nurse, why don't you see if she can put you in touch with other ward nurses who are working?
That's a great idea. I'll do that then.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
What parts of the course do you really enjoy?
Oh, I love all of it. Take the next biology assignment we've got, for example. I've spent all my time in libraries recently to prepare for it. But then I went to this beautiful old library that looked like it was just off a film set, and it just made me feel privileged to be there. And you? What have you enjoyed so far?
Well, you might think me crazy. It was doing night shifts.
Why is that? Because time flies?
No, it's that I've found it's a great time to find out more about the people we're looking after and to help those most in need by supporting them and being there to deal with their worries.
You're going to love the one-to-one aspect of hospital care.
You think?
Definitely.
And what about surgery? Have you observed yet?
Yes, I was surprised at how much preparation there was to do, and impressed at how much they got done so quickly. I really enjoyed seeing the surgical unit work so efficiently together, like a well-oiled machine.
Well, I'd love to see that. What I've enjoyed a lot as well is ward duty, especially the neonatal ward. There was one patient I escorted there to see her baby, who had been born prematurely at only 6 months. Seeing the bond they shared, I'll never forget it.
Actually, I've been asked to write a blog about my experiences as a nursing student. I agreed to share my learning experiences since I really enjoy bouncing ideas off others and reading their comments, though it'll be a challenge to keep it up regularly.
Interesting, though. I've got a placement on the vascular ward next. What's it like there?
The patients there often need surgery rather than pastoral care, so you really master dressing various types of wound. It's a difficult thing to get the hang of, but immensely rewarding.
OK, thanks. Well, I'll look forward to
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3.
Part 4. You will hear an ecologist giving a presentation on research on a type of snail. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon. The topic I've chosen for my presentation is a snail. Snails belong to a group of animals called mollusks, soft-bodied creatures normally protected by a hard shell. Today, I'm going to talk about a particular example, the white-lipped grove snail, and the research which is being done into it. I'll start by giving some background information about this variety. The white-lipped snail lives on land and is air-breathing. Its shell is easy to recognize because of its clear stripe, but it varies considerably in color, from pale pink to yellow. The snail gets its rather strange name from the fact that it has a white edge, or lip, to its shell. Its principal source of nutrition is plants, which are either already dead or in the process of rotting, a characteristic it shares with a number of other species of snail. Because of this, its normal habitat is similar to other land snails, and it can be seen in urban settings such as gardens as well as uncultivated areas. A final point about its ecology is that it also needs calcium and other minerals to keep it healthy. To get these, it frequently consumes soil, which contains these minerals. So far, nothing I've said would seem to set this variety apart from other land-dwelling, air-breathing snails. However, as long ago as the early 19th century, naturalists observed that these white-lipped snails appeared to live in two strikingly separate areas, many hundreds of miles apart, namely Ireland and the Pyrenees, the large mountain range on the border of France and Spain. But what is most surprising is that there was no record of the variety being found anywhere in between these places, so the distribution seemed very strange. This age-old puzzle has intrigued a group of present-day researchers at the University of Nottingham, and they've decided to undertake a detailed study to investigate the strange distribution pattern. First of all, they wanted to make sure that the distribution first noticed 200 years ago is in fact correct. Via the internet, they set up what is known as a megalab, recruiting numerous volunteers across Europe to be responsible for the collection of snail specimens, which were then sent to the university lab. Like many of these megalab initiatives, it was generally very successful, with high rates of participation. The research team then did a genetic analysis of the material they received. They confirmed that there were characteristics shared by the two sets of white-lipped snails from Ireland and from the Pyrenees. Most importantly, this variety does not seem to occur anywhere else. How could this split have happened, and when? Well, fossils indicate that the white-lipped snail has been living in the Pyrenees for tens of thousands of years, but that in Ireland its arrival was relatively recent. This fact was very telling for the researchers. It generated a number of different theories to explain the strange distribution phenomenon. The first theory the researchers looked at is one called convergent evolution, which basically means that the two sets of snails would have developed entirely separately, by complete coincidence. But the underlying similarities between the two sets are too close to be purely a matter of chance, so this seems an unlikely explanation. The second theory proposed is called natural migration, which would necessitate the snails swimming the sea to Ireland. This was ruled out because they hate salt and simply wouldn't have embarked on the journey across the sea, or, had they tried, wouldn't have survived. The team then started looking at different kinds of evidence, reviewing findings from various locations in the Pyrenees, which showed that mounds of white-lipped snail shells had been thrown away in caves. Clearly, these had been inhabited by Stone Age communities. This led to the conclusion that the snails must have been used over a long period by these Stone Age humans as food. And, interestingly, this was before the advent of agriculture. The team then looked at other types of archaeological evidence from prehistoric times in Ireland and the Pyrenees, and they found evidence that very early on there had been trade between the people living in these widely separated areas. For all these reasons, the research team have tentatively concluded that the most likely way in which the snails travelled from east to west was in boats, and that they were transported live to keep them fresh for consumption on the journey. The research team acknowledge that their study is in the early stages and needs further work. They recognise, for example, that they need to look at a broader sample of the snails. They also feel that other animals and plants might shed light on their research. They have found that there is probably at least one other type of organism which shows the same distribution pattern, the clear split between the Pyrenees and Ireland. This is a species of tree which they want to look at in more detail. Perhaps its story will corroborate that of the humble, migrating, white-lipped snail.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. You have 2 minutes left. You have 1 minute left. Please stop writing and wait for your question booklet to be